The first Psalm, 113, I think, has in it a capsule of a general picture of the creation and what our purpose is and how God relates to the world. In the last 3 verses. This psalm has 9 verses, and it breaks up into 3 groups of 3. I'll take a look at the first 2 groups briefly, and then I want to focus on the last group of 3 in some great detail. It starts, "Give praise, you servants of Hashem, praise the name of Hashem." I want to share with you an idea about the idea of praise. What is praise? In particular, is praise subjective? When I praise something, I say something that's a great piece of art, a great piece of music. Am I just expressing my feelings? Just saying, I like it. It moves me. Somebody else says, no, it's junk. We're not really disagreeing. I'm expressing how I feel, he's expressing how he feels. A lot of people think that way. A lot of people think that praise essentially is subjective. But that's not correct. There's a great, I should say, a very sizable number of philosophers who will agree that praise is not subjective. Of course, there'll be philosophers who disagree and say it is. Take any subject we like, there's always controversy. But it is a very, I think, strong and respected position that praise is not merely subjective. Let me give you an outlandish, extreme example. You run across someone, let's say from the Australian Great Desert, an Aborigine, who's never heard of basketball, doesn't know what it is. He's never heard of basketball. I got to show you something. Come with me to Sydney. I'm going to show you something that's really magnificent. So you take him into a stadium, and the teams are warming up. And suddenly he grabs your arm and he says, I can't believe what I just saw. That guy was in the air. He was actually in the air. And he threw the ball into the hoop. That's amazing. What a great shot. He made a jump shot from the foul line. Right? So you say, listen, don't get excited. High school kids can do that. That's not really a great shot. That's something, well, maybe during the game you'll see 2 or 3 great shots. But that was not great because it's ordinary. What do you mean? What do you mean? He said it's great. He's just expressing how he feels. Are you telling him how he should feel or shouldn't feel? Yeah, that's what you're telling him. You're telling him you can't call it great because by definition, great is something that's not very ordinary. Great is outstanding, superior to almost everything else. That's part of the definition of great. And therefore a person could say that something's great and make a mistake. If it's possible to make a mistake, then it's not subjective. By definition, subjective means there's no such thing as a mistake. I have my reaction, you have your reaction. And that's simply not correct. John Stuart Mill offered a criterion. He said, take 2 different pictures or novels or symphonies or whatever you like. Now imagine that everyone who's capable of understanding both of them prefers one. So you take a play by Shakespeare and a novel by Dickens. It might be, this doesn't have to happen, but let's suppose it happens, that everybody who understands both of them prefers Shakespeare. Then, said Mill, this play by Shakespeare is objectively superior to the novel by Dickens. Why? Because judgment is better when you're informed. The more understanding you have, the better your judgment is. Here, everyone with competent judgment to evaluate both of them prefers one of them. That means if somebody disagrees, he says, no, Shakespeare's junk, it's overwhelmingly probable he doesn't understand it. Why is he different from everybody else? And if he really did understand it, then Mill's criterion wouldn't be fulfilled. It just wouldn't be such a case. Mill is only saying that if everybody who can understand both prefers a particular one, then that one is superior. So I think that there's good reason to say that praise is objective. is a verse which says, enter his gates with thanksgiving, his courtyards. I have no clue why the English very often says courts for Chatzer. Chatzer is a courtyard. Nothing to do with judges sitting there and deciding cases and putting people in jail. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, his courtyards with praise. Now, this rabbi said, let's read it on the surface. The gateway is the entry to the courtyard. So what's associated with the gateway is more superficial. What's associated with the courtyard is more essential, more fundamental. You have thanksgiving at the gate, praise when you're inside. What's the difference between thanksgiving and praise? He says the difference is this. Thanksgiving starts with a completely selfish focus. Thanksgiving starts with the observation, I got something good. My position has been improved. Then I think, how did that happen? Did it fall out of the sky? Did it grow out of the ground? No. George gave it to me. Okay, then I owe George something because he improved my position. Thanksgiving starts with the subjective, with the personal, with the individual, with the ego, and moves to a perception outside for the cause of the benefit. Praise, he said, is totally objective. In order to give praise, you have to step outside of yourself altogether. And that's why Thanksgiving is an entryway to praise. Thanksgiving takes you from the internal to the external. Once you've made that shift to focus on the external, then you're qualified to engage in praise. That, I think, is pretty much on the surface of what this verse says. Okay, having said all of that, let's go back to 633. The psalm starts, give praise, you servants of Hashem. Is that meant to exclude everybody else? In a certain way, yes. Who is qualified to give praise? Only a person who knows. Only a person who understands. Someone who's close enough to the subject, is competent in the subject, to be able to say something that's accurate about the subject. So yes, give praise, you servants of Hashem, because those who are servants, who are close, they're the ones who are qualified to express accurate praise. And indeed, we have this registered in the prayers every day, several places, where we say, holy, holy, holy is Hashem of hosts, holy, let's fill His glory. Where do we get those words from? Who said them first? The angels. It says in the text, every time we say those words, we're saying, the angels said. Isaiah had a vision of angels praising God. When we say that, we always quote it from them. We say, we're not qualified to say that. We wouldn't have come up with that. We wouldn't have known that. But they say it, and they're more qualified than we. We're imitating them. We're taking it from them. So that's why we have a right to say it, because they're more qualified than we are. So, praise being an attempt to describe something objectively, you can do it better or worse, you can do it right or wrong, and therefore, in the first instance is for those who are close to Hashem. Okay? Now, it goes on, blessed be the name of Hashem from this time and from forever. From the rising of the sun to its setting, Hashem's name is to be praised. Is the second one included in the first one? Then it sounds redundant, doesn't it? I mean, like, forever, morning, noon, evening, 24/7, and from sunrise to sunset. Like, that's, why bother? It doesn't have to be that way, because from sunrise to sunset might be geographical. Not time, but geography. It means from east to west. Not from the time the sun comes up to the time the sun goes down, but from the east to the west. So the first one is throughout time, the second is throughout geography, and they complement one another. Yeah.
Why wouldn't they have said that?
Well, the truth is, those are the words that are used for east and west. So it's not clear that the text isn't saying it. Well, Mizrach. The word Mizrach means the shining of the sun. The Zroach means to shine. It's just borrowed from that to mean east. Okay, so these first three verses talk about God being praised everywhere, everywhen, and starting with those who understand. Then, the next three. High above all nations is Hashem. Above the heavens is His glory. Who is like Hashem our God, who is enthroned on high, yet, and now your English translator uses a poetical word which nobody understands, deigns. You have a clue what deigns means?
Like he goes down to, like he dares to...
Okay, to deign means to do something that's beneath your stature. Something that's beneath you, below you, it's not worthy of you. Right? And it could translate it that way, but the literal Hebrew is lowers himself. Mashpili. Mashpil means to pull something down from the shelf, from the roof. If someone has a picture that God dwells in heaven, think again. Here he has to lower himself to look at the heavens. The heavens are infinitely beneath him because the heavens are a creature, and he's a creator. So this pictures God as above, beyond, transcending everything. That's the position from which God runs the world for its ultimate purpose. When God is pictured as intimately involved in everyday affairs and the details of everyday affairs, it could be that God reacts in a way that's determined by what's going on at the moment. When God is pictured as above and beyond everything, it means that this focus that's going to be expressed is the ultimate purpose of creation. That sets up the last three verses to make them absolutely crucial. Now let's look at the last three verses. He raises the needy from the, they do it again. Dirt, not dust. Afar is dirt. Dust is avak in Hebrew. It's almost never used. It's not used here either. He raises the needy, but for the poor English translator, what's he going to write? Dirt? Dirt sounds dirty. Ugh, it's just not a nice thing to talk about. So he uses poetical dust, but the literal Hebrew is dirt. He raises the needy from the dirt, from the trash heaps. He lifts the destitute to seat them with, now the literal Hebrew is philanthropists, people who give. He takes the needy from the dirt, the trash heaps, he lifts up the destitute to seat them with those who are generous, benefactors. That's not an obvious move. If you're overcoming poverty, presumably what you do is you make the person either wealthy or independent. Why would you contrast poverty with philanthropy? That's not an obvious move.
These are takers or givers. We pay all the taxes for this.
Okay, I hear. It could be. But then one wants to know why the text doesn't say that. In other words, why talk about people who are poor? Why not talk about people who receive charity? From receiving charity to giving charity. Poverty, there are poor people who refuse to take charity. There are such people. And even if the poor person typically takes charity, why speak of his objective economic condition rather than what you're trying to refer to, which is specifically the fact that he's receiving from others?
Well, the person begins in a place where they're unable to satisfy themselves, and they end up in a place where not only can they satisfy themselves, they then have excess that they give to others. So it's not necessarily about having charity, receiving charity initially, but not having enough initially, and then going to a place of having excess. And what do you do with that excess? You spread that and share that as well.
That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting thought. It's close to what you said, but I think it's more narrowly fits the concepts. I didn't think of that example. That's an interesting example. I have another explanation, and they can both be true, but you have the right thing. Especially destitute. Poor doesn't mean necessarily that he can't do for himself. An Evion probably would be somebody who can't do for himself. Now you say it's the contrasting ends of the scale. Okay, I hear what you're saying. One could still ask why the text wants to picture him as going to the contrasting ends of the scale. Why is that the point the text is making? Let's take a person who's sick. What would you think of as recovering from sickness? I would think health. You say, to be a top Olympic athlete? That's the other end of the scale, but why would you go that far? Sickness is a disability. And when you're healthy, you're not suffering a disability. You don't have to go. No natural reason why you have to go to the other extreme of the scale. in order to repair the problem that you have.
But this is the abilities of God. This is what God can do. And this is what...
But this isn't what God can do, it's what he does.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not clear why he would be committed to doing that. Not clear why he would be committed to doing that. Indeed, with health, we never say it. We never say you go from sickness to being outstandingly strong and athletic. We just say you become healthy. That's all. So I hear what you're saying, and it's definitely relevant. But there's more to be said. Last one is he transforms a barren wife into a glad mother of children. Now, there are lots of people in trouble in the world, sick people in particular. That's not mentioned. Captives, whom we mentioned in other prayers, in the various prayers, not mentioned. People are captives and need to be freed. Suffering broken limbs and so forth and so on. One wants to know why King David picked these two examples particularly. There's a statement in the Talmud which I think is directly relevant here. And of course, it means it's taken really from what King David's talking about. The Talmud says there are 4 categories of people who aren't fully alive. I'm now explaining the intention of the Talmudic statement. The Talmudic statement is more bold. It says that as if they're dead, but in 99% of the context it's not true. So what the Talmudic statement means is that they are not fully alive. Who are they? One is a person who's impoverished. Another is a person who's blind. Another is a person who's childless. So we have 2 out of them. And another is a person who has tsaras. Tsaras is a physical condition that's mistranslated as leprosy. It's not really leprosy, but it is characterized by being expelled from the community, expelled from the city, and no one should have any contact with the person. The Talmud says that these 4 are as if they are dead. Why? So some of the commentators explain as follows. The common element in all 4 of these is that all 4 lack the normal opportunity to do loving kindness. They lack the normal opportunity or opportunities to do loving kindness. And they fall into 2 subcategories. One subcategory is they lack the normal opportunities because they lack the means. And the other is they lack the normal opportunities because they lack the contact with people who need it. Now let's see how it works. A person who's impoverished doesn't have the physical resources to help other people. That doesn't mean he can't do anything. He can give free advice. He can accompany a person. He can give emotional support, but he can't invite a wedding in his home, and he can't loan someone $100,000 to save his business. He can't do that. A person who's blind is very largely dependent upon other people. Again, a blind person can do for others, can give advice, can give support, teach, but he can't give you a lift to the supermarket. He can't help suggest how you should decorate your living room, and there's certain things. And very largely dependent on other people to get things done. Childless person lacks contact with the needy that would draw out of him a response of loving kindness that usually the person doesn't even know he possesses. When you will become parents and your children will be in need, you will discover a wellspring of loving kindness in you. For most parents, it comes as a shock. When my child is screaming at 2 a.m. and nobody knows why, and that happens. You pick the child up, you put him on your shoulder or her on your shoulder, and you're singing to the child, playing music, and pacing with the child, and bouncing the child. And you don't feel irritation, and you don't think, boy, am I going to be tired tomorrow? What a pain in the neck. I'm up all night with the child. You don't think that. And you don't feel that. What you feel is, my child is in distress, and I have to do something for my child. Having children draws out of a person that loving kindness that isn't ordinarily expressed. And a person who has tsaras is isolated. He's really isolated. He can't live in the city with anybody else. No one can approach him. So, of course, the normal means of expressing loving kindness are denied him. That's the common element. Now, what is King David saying? What King David is saying is that God overcomes this disability. Let's think, not moving in your direction, but not exactly in the application. What is the spiritual problem with poverty? What is the spiritual disability in poverty? That you can't help others. That's what's wrong with poverty. Wrong with poverty is not that from time to time you miss a meal. That might be good or it might be bad. It depends upon you. But if you don't have enough money to help other people, that's the problem. So then the solution is you have to put them together with a philanthropist, because that's the solution to the problem. You start unable to help others, the solution to that is put them in a position where he can help others. It's a direct opposition now, a direct two ends of the same scale. And the same is true with the barren mother. She doesn't have the opportunity to give loving kindness to children, so she gets the opportunity to give. That's what God is giving. And if you'll ask, why was each one of these chosen from the subcategories? I think because they're more common. Poverty is more common than blindness, and barrenness is more common than tsaras, than this physical condition. So King David picked each one, to pick an example of each one. His general point is, there are conditions in life where you are crippled in your ability to give, and God solves that problem. He repairs those inabilities by making it possible for you to give. Are we together so far? Okay, now remember, this is what God is doing from on high, from the position of being above the whole world, being transcendent. That's got to be the purpose of the world. The purpose of the world, in particular the purpose of man's creation, is that man should be able to help, be able to give, be able to express loving kindness. And the gift that God gives to a person is to put him in a position where he can express loving kindness. You get it so far? Okay, now the capstone. What is God doing the whole time? In creating the world, what is he doing? He's giving to us. There's nothing that he, so to speak, personally, egotistically gets out of the creation. The whole purpose of the creation is that he can express his loving kindness to an other, and that's us. So when God then makes it possible for us to express loving kindness, he's making it possible for us to be God-like. He makes it possible for us to do what he's doing. And that's what we're created to be. We're created to become, through our own choices, God-like. And since the underlying theme of everything that he's doing is to express loving kindness, that becomes the highest theme in human life, to express loving kindness. And that means that here in this psalm, King David is telling us that God gives people the greatest gift possible. He gives them the ability to become like him, to become godlike. Now, I don't think I pumped too much in here. I think it's pretty clear that this is what the verses are talking about, with that statement from the Talmud, which of course is important to have in order to have the background. Okay, together? This is almost the end of Hallel. The 4 verses, it's really 2 verses doubled in the middle of the page, set off the short verses. Please Hashem, save now twice, and please Hashem, bring success now. You hear a gifted singer do a rendition of Hallel. To me, it's always interesting to see when he gets to this, and this is really, in a certain sense, the high point of all Hallel, where does he put the emphasis? On the first verse or the second verse? Let's see. What do you think? Where does the high point belong? Please Hashem, save now. Please Hashem, bring success now. What's the difference between saving and bringing success?
Saving us brings us back up to neutral, and success is bringing us above neutral. Okay.
You're right in the English. English has problems with the vocabulary here, but the word for redemption is geula, and here it's Yeshua. It's not geula. So it wouldn't be redemption in this case. It would be just save. Right? When would you yell, save me?
Would you be in a tub?
When you're in trouble, like drowning, right? Person drowning, save me. That's usually when I'm lost. I'm lost. I have no way to save myself. I have no way to get out of the problem. So I ask somebody else to save me. when you ask, bring success now, what's your position? Where are you when you say those words?
Need money, in need of money.
Okay.
You're already saved. You're already rescued.
You're rescued. What's your position? What are you doing?
You're asking for more assistance beyond the known.
Okay, but the key word is assistance. In other words, I'm doing something. I'm engaged in a process. I'm engaged in a task. I want success. But I'm not sitting back and waiting for it to happen by itself. I'm not sitting back and waiting for God to do it. I'm running a business. I haven't got enough money to invest. I'm short on investments. Please help give me success by providing me with more assistance. Assistance means I'm doing also. I'm asking for partnership. I'm not asking for salvation. I'm asking for partnership. Now, what are we put in the world to do? Are we put in the world to drown and say to God, save me from drowning? That's not what we're put here to do. It happens. It happens. And we do have to be asked to be saved. There's no question about it. But that's not the purpose of our creation. The purpose of our creation is that we're here to do something, to accomplish something, always to remember that we're never doing it alone, and we could never succeed alone. But to ask for God to bring success is to ask for God to participate in what I was created to do. To ask to be saved is not that. To ask to be saved is just, I'm going to be lost, and I won't be able to do anything unless you save me. So I think the real high point is bring success now. I think it's really in success now. Okay, now I want to tell you a story. This probably happened about 120 years ago. It was Rosh Hashanah, and the Ger Rabbi of that time told his Hasidim that this year on Sukkot, when you say Hallel, if when you say please Hashem, you have in mind what you need, I promise you, you'll get everything that you need. That's what he said. You can imagine, 3 weeks later, when it was Sukkot, when they said Hallel, the roof was shattering. Several months afterwards, two of the elder Hasidim were talking, and one said to the other, you know, I have a terrible confession to make. I'm sure I had in mind what I need when I said, please Hashem, but nothing happened. And the other one said, you know, strange to say, I had the same experience. So they decided they were going to try to get an answer. It's a tricky thing to go to the Ger Rebbe and ask him straight out. It's not something which is easy to do and obvious to do. But they went to the Gabbai. And the Gabbai, who has the Rebbe's confidence and is with him, and he told them the story, and he said to them, you didn't get what you wanted, and you're sure you had it in mind? Which verse did you have it in mind? So they said, the Rebbe said, please Hashem, save now. Please Hashem, bring success now. Gabbai said, wrong verse. Wrong verse. Look at page 637. 2 lines from the bottom. Please Hashem, for I am your servant. That's another please Hashem. It's also in Hallel. But it's not please Hashem, save now, and please Hashem, give success now. It's please Hashem, for I am your servant. That's what the Rebbe meant. The Rebbe meant when you ask for something, if you ask for something in the meaning of I'm serving you and I need more help in serving you, then you'll get it. If your whole request is only for a greater ability to serve God, then you'll get it. If you are personally involved and egotistically motivated, please Hashem, send me that 2015 Porsche. Why? Because I like nice cars. I like nice cars. You know, I just need a 2015 Porsche. Then I'm not guaranteeing. But if you ask only for what you need to serve Him, because you need it to serve Him, then I'm guaranteeing that you get it. So this is the please Hashem that he meant. Now this is a key to prayer in general. That this is the level that our petitions for God should be on. The level of, I'm asking you for means to be able to serve you better. That's what the Ger Rebbe wanted to communicate. You get it so far? He will bless those who fear Hashem, the small as well as the great. That's what's written in the English, but that is not a good translation. The literal translation is together with, im, together with, not the, and, but together with. And here you have a key idea that you can participate in God's relationship with a great spiritual person by being connected with that person. You don't have to earn it all on your own. The very fact that you're connected to such a person means that whatever greatness he has, you can benefit from that. You can connect to that. So a person says, fear of God, that's not my strong number. I know that I really need to grow and develop in that. And I know that because of that, for me personally, God is not as close to me as I would have liked. But I know someone who is great in fear of God. And by attaching myself to that person, I too can benefit from his fear of God. And that's true in two ways. First of all, when you associate with such people, their greatness rubs off on you. When the Jewish people leave Egypt and they're on the way to Sinai, before they get there, there's an army of Amalekites that comes and attacks. And Moses says to Joshua, raise an army and go out and fight them, and there's a battle. And it says, the Torah says that Moses went up to a mountain with Aaron, his brother, and Hur, brother-in-law, and he was on the mountain, and when Moses raised his hands, the Jewish side was victorious. When he lowered his hands, the Amalekite side was victorious. And his hands went up and down, and the victories switched from side to side until they got him a stone to sit on, and he sat down, and they held his hands up. His hands were up until nightfall, and the Amalekite side was weakened. It remains weakened throughout history because of that battle. Now, the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says, do Moses' hands make war or break war? We're not believers in magic of that kind, you know. Your 10 fingers are further off the ground, so therefore you win. A little closer to the ground, you lose. No, when the people saw that Moses' hands went up and they dedicated themselves to God, they were victorious. And Moses' hands went down and they didn't dedicate themselves to God, then they weren't victorious. The Boston Rabbi of Yerushalayim, lives in Har Nof, many years ago asked a very simple question. Talking about Jewish soldiers now, right? I'm going to be very chauvinistic. Now, Moses' hands go up and they dedicate themselves to God and they are victorious. Moses' hands go down and they don't dedicate themselves to God and they start to lose. Can't they figure it out? They know it isn't Moses' hands that's doing it. They know it's their dedication to God that's doing it. So even when his hands go down, dedicate yourself to God and win. Answer, they can't do it. They can't do it. They're dependent upon the inspiration of Moses to be able to do it. So this is what they get when they connect themselves to Moses and they can be benefited by his inspiration. They reach a higher level. When they reach a higher level, they can be more successful. So now this means that this is an opportunity that God gives us. There are great people. Make use of their inspiration. Connect yourself to them so that their inspiration elevates you, enables you to reach a higher level. That's one thing. And the other thing is that God favors such great people that those who are in their company, those who are connected to them, are included in the blessings that God gives to those great people. Both of those ideas are expressed in that verse. That God will bless those who are small in fear of God when they are together with those who are great in fear of God. These are a few little things to think about tomorrow morning when you say hallelujah.